Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive. Today we're not just dipping our toes, we're plunging headfirst into the ancient world to explore some truly mind-blowing inventions. These aren't just dusty artifacts in a museum, you know. They're vivid proofs that ancient civilizations were astonishingly ahead of their time, laying groundwork for technologies we often assume are purely modern. Forget what you thought you know about the past, because this deep dive is going to reshape it. From forgotten computers that mapped the cosmos to intricate brain surgery performed millennia ago, we've taken a stack of incredible sources, articles, cutting-edge research, and fascinating historical notes to extract the most important nuggets of knowledge just for you.
Yeah.
Think of this as your shortcut to being truly well-informed about how innovative our ancestors truly were. So are you ready to challenge your assumptions and uncover a history far richer in ingenuity than you ever imagined?
What's truly compelling here, I think, is that we're not simply going to list these incredible inventions. Our mission is to help you understand not just what they invented, but why it mattered, right? Connecting these ancient insights to the bigger picture of human progress.
Exactly.
We'll challenge some common assumptions about the linear march of technology and reveal how these brilliant minds tackled universal problems, from predicting celestial events to building monumental structures that still defy time. Their solutions often mirrored, or even, well, sometimes surpass what we consider peak modern advancements.
All right, let's unpack this. When we think about advanced computing or sophisticated seismic detectors, our minds typically jump to the 20th or 21st century. We imagine silicon chips and digital screens.
Right, the modern stuff.
But what if I told you that some of the most profound leaps in understanding complex systems, some of the very first computations, happened thousands of years ago? It's genuinely astonishing how far back the roots of our scientific and computational thought really go.
Precisely. The inherent human drive to understand, to predict, and, well, to control the world around us is universal. This impulse isn't just about idle curiosity. It's about the fundamental need to make sense of our environment, to predict patterns for survival, and to leverage that understanding for practical purposes, whether it's for agriculture, for navigation, or even for preparing for natural disasters. And this drive led to innovations we still marvel at today.
And speaking of understanding, let's start with something that truly boggles the mind, an invention that forces us to completely reconsider the timeline of technological advancement: the Antikythera Mechanism.
Ah, yes.
This ancient Greek device, dating back to roughly 150–100 BCE, is often called the world's first analog computer. Can you imagine the level of ingenuity required to design and build something like this without modern tools? It's truly mind-blowing.
It's an extraordinary piece of engineering, yeah. And its story is almost as fascinating as the mechanism itself. Discovered in a shipwreck off the coast of the Greek island of Antikythera in 1901, it initially just stumped archaeologists.
Right, they didn't know what it was.
Exactly. Only through decades of meticulous study, including, advanced X-ray tomography in recent years, have we truly begun to understand its breathtaking complexity. This wasn't just a simple clock by any stretch. This was a complex, hand-cranked mechanism composed of dozens of intricately meshing bronze gears.
Dozens of gears, wow. And what exactly could it do? What was its purpose?
Its primary function was to calculate and display celestial information with remarkable precision. Imagine a portable orrery, sort of. It tracked the precise movements of the sun, the moon, and the 5 known visible planets: Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn.
Okay.
Crucially, it could predict solar and lunar eclipses by modeling the Saros cycle, which is a period of 223 lunations, after which the relative positions of the sun, moon, and Earth repeat.
That's incredible precision.
It is. It even accounted for the moon's elliptical orbit and varying speed across the sky, details we usually associate with Kepler's laws much, much later.
Way later, yeah.
And perhaps my favorite detail, it kept track of the 4-year cycle of the ancient Olympic Games.
No way. It tracked the Olympics too. That's amazing. The mention of its differential gearing system keeps popping up in the sources. What exactly does that mean, and why is it so significant?
Great question. Differential gearing is basically a mechanism where gears can add and subtract rotations. This allows the device to model complex, interdependent astronomical cycles simultaneously. It's a concept we normally associate with 19th century industrial machinery.
Right, like in cars.
Exactly, used in everything from car differentials to mechanical calculators. To find this system in a 2,000-year-old device implies a level of mechanical and mathematical sophistication that profoundly challenges our understanding of ancient Greek technology. It tells us that they had a deep, almost forgotten understanding of kinematics and the ability to translate abstract astronomical theories into a working physical model. It forces us to reconsider the timeline of technological advancement, suggesting that perhaps far more advanced knowledge existed in antiquity than we currently account for. Maybe stuff got lost.
Absolutely. It really does make you wonder. And while we're talking about foundational thinking that reshapes our understanding of advanced, let's turn our attention to numbers themselves. It's easy to take for granted something as fundamental as the concept of zero. But Indian mathematicians introduced zero, revolutionizing math and paving the way for calculus. Why was the concept of zero so revolutionary? I mean, it's just nothing, right?
It's an excellent question because the absence of zero, or even just a placeholder for nothing, severely limited previous mathematical systems. Imagine trying to do complex multiplication or division with Roman numerals.
Oh yeah, nightmare.
Right, which don't have a true zero. The calculations become incredibly cumbersome and often impossible for larger numbers. The Indian concept of zero, initially represented as like a dot or a small circle, completely transformed the positional number system.
So the position of the numbers suddenly mattered in a whole new way.
Precisely. This meant that the value of a digit depended on its position within a number, allowing for vastly more efficient calculations and paving the way for abstract mathematical concepts, including the variances to the universal language of mathematics.
So what does this all mean for understanding the very foundations of modern mathematics? It means that many of the tools we use today, the very language of science and engineering, have deep roots in these ancient civilizations, often in places and times we might not expect.
Exactly.
And it wasn't just about numbers, it was about understanding cycles, especially the passage of time. The Mayan calendar, for instance, was a highly accurate system for tracking solar, lunar, and planetary cycles, incredibly complex and long-lasting.
Oh, the Mayan calendar system is a masterpiece of observational astronomy and calendrical computation. It wasn't just one calendar either. It utilized multiple interlocking cycles to achieve its remarkable precision.
Multiple calendars, like what?
You had the 260-day Sulcan, which was a sacred ritual calendar, and the 365-day Hab, their civil calendar, roughly aligning with the solar year. These two cycles interlock to form the 52-year calendar round.
Okay, 52 years is a long cycle.
But the real ingenuity came with the long count calendar. This was a linear count of days from a mythological starting point, allowing them to track vast periods of time, up to millions of years, with remarkable accuracy.
Millions of years.
This level of calendrical sophistication wasn't just for marking seasons, it was about understanding cosmic order, predicting auspicious dates for rituals and agriculture, and establishing their place within the grand cycles of the universe, deeply intertwined with their worldview.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, it underscores how diverse cultures, spanning continents, approach the intricate task of understanding and predicting time and the cosmos. The Mayans, like the Greeks with the Antikythera, demonstrated an acute observational skill and mathematical prowess to create systems that were not just accurate for their immediate needs, but incredibly sophisticated in their long-term predictive power. It truly makes you wonder what else we might be missing about their scientific capabilities. And here's where it gets really interesting, moving from predicting the cosmos to sensing the Earth's pulse. Imagine building an earthquake detector nearly 2,000 years ago.
Yeah, that's Zhongheng's seismograph.
From China, dating back to 132 AD. This wasn't just a party trick. It was a functional device that could provide crucial information for imperial governance. How did this ingenious mechanism actually work?
This ancient seismograph, often called the Hufeng Dadong Yi, was truly a masterpiece of mechanical engineering and observational science. It was described as a large, ornate bronze vessel, somewhat resembling a wine jar, about 6 feet in diameter.
Pretty big then.
Yeah. Around its exterior, there were 8 dragon heads, each positioned to face one of the 8 principal directions, and each holding a small bronze ball in its mouth. Directly below each dragon was a bronze toad, mouth agape, ready to catch a falling ball.
Okay, dragons and toads. So a dragon drops a ball into a toad's mouth. But how did it detect the earthquake? That's the clever bit, right?
Inside the vessel, and this is the ingenious part, there was a finely balanced pendulum or perhaps a suspended column acting as the primary seismic sensor. When an earthquake struck, even a distant one, the subtle tremor would cause this internal pendulum to swing.
Ah, okay.
This movement would trigger a precisely timed system of levers and counterweights inside, causing one of the 8 dragons' mouths to open and drop its bronze ball into the toad's mouth directly below it.
And that told you the direction.
Exactly. The beauty of this design was that the specific dragon whose ball dropped indicated the direction from which the earthquake originated. This provided early warning for remote earthquakes, allowing the emperor to dispatch aid and assess damage in the affected areas, sometimes days before news would otherwise arrive by conventional means.
That's incredible foresight.
It reflects a profound practical application of scientific observation and mechanical engineering, demonstrating a sophisticated understanding of seismic activity that predates modern seismology by centuries. Just stunning, really.
From the subtle vibrations of the earth, let's now shift our gaze to the monumental structures that endure through millennia. Ancient builders truly laid the groundwork for our modern cities, crafting structures that still stand today, from colossal temples and massive public works to intricate systems that brought water over vast distances. It's incredible to think about the sheer engineering prowess and the longevity they achieved. How did they do it?
This raises a critical question about material science and fundamental engineering principles. These civilizations weren't just building, they were innovating with a deep, intuitive understanding of their environment and the properties of the materials they used. Their innovations were often born out of necessity, right? Driven by the desire for durability, functionality, and often monumental expression of power or belief.
They really knew their stuff.
They had an inherent grasp of physics, statics, and material behavior that allowed them to push the boundaries of what was possible with the available resources. It's a testament to their trial and error, their accumulated wisdom, and their sheer determination.
And nothing exemplifies that deep understanding better than Roman concrete. Unlike much of our modern concrete, which degrades over time, Roman concrete actually gets stronger over millennia. How's that even possible?
Well, they achieved this incredible durability by incorporating volcanic ash, specifically a substance called pozzolana, into their mixture.
Pozzolana. Okay.
Yeah.
How did this natural material bestow such superpowers on their concrete?
It's truly fascinating, and the chemistry is quite elegant. When the Romans mixed volcanic ash pozzolana with lime and seawater, it created a unique chemical reaction. Instead of merely drying, this mixture formed a very strong crystalline binder that continued to grow and strengthen over thousands of years.
It grew stronger.
Yeah, this process, technically known as pozzolanic reaction, creates a calcium aluminum silicate hydrate, or CaSH compound, which is incredibly dense and resistant to microcracking. Modern concrete, by contrast, relies on a binder that forms calcium silicate hydrate, which is strong but doesn't have the same self-healing, long-term strengthening properties when exposed to water, especially seawater.
So their concrete literally healed itself and got stronger in water. That's amazing. Like self-repairing concrete.
Precisely. They had an inherent grasp of physics, statics, and material behavior that allowed them to push the boundaries of what was possible with the available resources. It's a testament to their trial and error, their accumulated wisdom, and their sheer determination.
And nothing exemplifies that deep understanding better than Roman concrete. Unlike much of our modern concrete, which degrades over time, Roman concrete actually gets stronger over millennia. How's that even possible?
Well, they achieved this incredible durability by incorporating volcanic ash, specifically a substance called pozzolana, into their mixture.
Pozzolana. Okay.
Yeah.
How did this natural material bestow such superpowers on their concrete?
It's truly fascinating, and the chemistry is quite elegant. When the Romans mixed volcanic ash pozzolana with lime and seawater, it created a unique chemical reaction. Instead of merely drying, this mixture formed a very strong crystalline binder that continued to grow and strengthen over thousands of years.
It grew stronger.
Yeah, this process, technically known as pozzolanic reaction, creates a calcium aluminum silicate hydrate, or CaSH compound, which is incredibly dense and resistant to microcracking. Modern concrete, by contrast, relies on a binder that forms calcium silicate hydrate, which is strong but doesn't have the same self-healing, long-term strengthening properties when exposed to water, especially seawater.
So their concrete literally healed itself and got stronger in water. That's amazing. Like self-repairing concrete.
Precisely. This unique property allowed for the construction of vast, enduring structures that still stand today, many of which have been submerged in seawater for 2 millennia and remain remarkably intact. Imagine the impact of this on Roman architecture, enabling monumental buildings like the Pantheon, the Colosseum, and their massive harbors, structures that still defy time and modern engineering conventions.
And it wasn't just the concrete, it was how they used it. The Romans perfected the arch and domes. We see arches everywhere, but what was the structural genius behind them? Why were they so important?
The structural genius of the arch lies in its ability to efficiently distribute weight downwards and outwards. It converts vertical loads into outward thrusts that are then contained by abutments or other arches.
So it spreads the load out.
Exactly. This allowed builders to span much wider openings than with simple lintels, like a flat beam across two posts, which could only support weight directly above them and were prone to breaking over large spans. This led to incredibly durable bridges, vast aqueducts, and monumental buildings.
And the dome is like an arch spun around.
In a way, yeah. The dome, in particular, was perfected by the Romans and allowed for massive, open-roofed spaces like the Pantheon. The Pantheon's dome, built almost entirely of that amazing unreinforced concrete, remains the largest unreinforced concrete dome in the world.
Still, after all this time.
Still. It's a testament to their mastery of materials and structural principles. It's a marvel of engineering, perfectly proportioned with its central oculus, that opening at the top.
Right, the hole in the roof.
Yeah, that not only serving as a light source, but also ingeniously reducing the weight at the dome's crown, contributing to its stability. Just brilliant design.
And these innovations connected an entire empire. Think of the Roman aqueducts, which utilized the arch and gravity to bring water from miles away into cities, essentially paving the way for modern plumbing systems. This wasn't just about convenience, it was about public health and the functioning of a vast urban network, wasn't it?
Indeed. The multi-tiered structure of many Roman aqueducts, some spanning tens of miles, demonstrated a sophisticated understanding of hydraulics and surveying. They engineered precise gradients, using the natural slope of the land and the strategic placement of arches to ensure a continuous flow of fresh water into urban centers.
Must have required incredible planning.
Absolutely. This transformed sanitation and daily life in Roman cities. Coupled with this were the extensive Roman road networks, over 250,000 miles of roads, many of which are still visible today, demonstrating an unparalleled commitment to infrastructure.
250,000 miles.
Yeah, these roads were marvels of civil engineering, constructed with multiple layers of stone, gravel, and concrete, ensuring durability and efficient drainage. They facilitated rapid communication, military movement, and trade across their vast empire, truly binding it together for centuries.
Beyond the Roman Empire, other civilizations also demonstrated incredible architectural and engineering foresight, especially when it came to natural disasters. Take, for example, the earthquake-resistant pagodas in Japan.
Ah, yes, those are fascinating.
These multi-story wooden structures, often reaching impressive heights, were designed to sway and not collapse during earthquakes. How did they achieve this? It seems counterintuitive.
It's an astonishing example of intuitive seismic engineering. Their unique design principle involved a central pillar, or shinbashira, which was largely detached from the surrounding floors and roof. It didn't bear the main load.
So the central post wasn't holding it up.
Not primarily. This allowed each level of the pagoda to move independently, kind of like beads on a string during an earthquake. This flexible structure, combined with interlocking wooden joints fitted precisely without nails and the sheer weight of the roof tiles, enabled the pagodas to absorb and dissipate seismic energy.
So they swayed with the quake instead of fighting it.
Exactly. Rather than acting as a rigid stick that would snap, they behaved like a flexible whip, gently swaying and returning to their upright position. It's a principle we see in modern skyscraper design, but applied centuries ago with entirely natural materials. Truly remarkable.
So what does this all mean for understanding ancient structural engineering? They were essentially designing for seismic resilience centuries before modern understanding of plate tectonics and engineering seismology. It's astonishing.
It really is.
And then, of course, we have the pyramids of Egypt and Maya. Built with stunning precision, money aligned with celestial events and cardinal directions. How do they manage such monumental feats? The scale is just hard to comprehend.
The Egyptian pyramids, like the Great Pyramid of Giza, are aligned almost perfectly with true north, showcasing incredible astronomical knowledge and surveying skills. This precision isn't accidental. It required sophisticated methods for determining cardinal directions, likely using stellar observations.
Aligning something that massive so precisely.
And for the Maya, many of their pyramids and temples were aligned to track solstices, equinoxes, and the precise movements of Venus, which was crucial for their calendrical and religious cycles. So similar astronomical precision, but tied into their own cultural context.
Okay, beyond the alignments, what about just building them?
Well, think about the sheer engineering challenge involved. quarrying millions of massive stone blocks, transporting them across vast distances, sometimes by river, sometimes overland, and then lifting and precisely positioning them to create structures hundreds of feet high.
Yeah, how did they lift those blocks?
Theories abound, from various ramp systems, straight ramps, spiral ramps, internal ramps, to complex lever mechanisms, and even, some research suggests, the use of wet sand to reduce friction when dragging colossal stones.
Wet sand.
Interesting. Regardless of the exact methods, these structures reflect an immense logistical and organizational capacity, not to mention a profound understanding of mechanics and geometry. These weren't just tombs or temples, they were cosmic observatories and monumental statements of power, belief, and intellectual prowess.
Moving from grand structures, ancient civilizations were also surprisingly sophisticated when it came to personal well-being, health, and what we now consider basic sanitation. Prepare to be amazed, folks, by their medical prowess and ingenious plumbing systems.
It's crucial to understand that their approach to health was often holistic, integrating acute observation, vast botanical knowledge, and surprisingly advanced surgical techniques. They understood the connection between environment, lifestyle, and health long before germ theory, and their innovations in these areas were truly transformative for daily living.
It's incredible to think about the level of detail and complexity in ancient medical practices. For instance, the Sushruta Samhita from ancient India describes complex surgeries and over 100 instruments. This is an ancient Indian medical text, one of the foundational texts of Ayurveda, right? Dating back to maybe the 6th century BCE.
That's right. The Sushruta Samhita is a true medical marvel. It details specific types of incredibly complex surgeries, including rhinoplasty reconstructive surgery for the nose using skin grafts from the forehead.
Wow, plastic surgery back then.
Essentially, yes. A procedure that was lost and only rediscovered in Europe centuries later. It also describes a technique known as cataract surgery, specifically couching, where the clouded lens of the eye was manually displaced with a sharp instrument, pushing it downwards and out of the line of sight to allow light to reach the retina.
That friend who devours books, I just read about this, and it's truly incredible to think about the manual dexterity and knowledge required. Performing eye surgery without modern tech.
Imagine the steadiness of hand, the anatomical knowledge needed to perform such a delicate procedure without modern anesthetics, antibiotics, or sterile environments. The text even describes specific surgical instruments, over 100 of them, including scalpels, forceps, speculums, and needles, outlining their precise uses. It demonstrates a systematic, highly practical approach to medicine that focused on tangible patient outcomes.
And it wasn't just about treating illnesses. What about helping people live better lives with disabilities? I saw something about prosthetics.
Yes. Beyond the surgical innovations, ancient Egyptians were also pioneers in the field of prosthetics. Artificial limbs like wooden toes and fingers were used as early as 600 BCE. The Cairo toe and the Greville Chester toe are famous examples.
Real functional toes.
Exactly. The Cairo toe, found on a mummy, showed signs of wear, indicating it was actively used by a living person. These weren't just cosmetic additions. They were remarkably sophisticated in their design for function, aiding mobility and balance.
So what does this imply?
Well, what does this imply about their understanding of anatomy, quality of life, and compassionate care? It suggests a society that valued the ability of its members to function and live full, active lives, even with physical disabilities. Pretty forward thinking.
Absolutely. And the Indus Valley civilization showed astonishing evidence of dentistry. Skulls show evidence of drilled teeth using flint tools for treatment. Sounds painful.
It probably was. Skulls from archaeological sites like Mehrgar, dating back even further to 7000 BCE, reveal drilled teeth using flint tools for treatment. What does this tell us? It tells us a lot about common ailments. Dental pain is clearly not new in sophisticated efforts to alleviate pain and treat conditions.
Did they use fillings?
There's even evidence suggesting they used early forms of dental fillings, possibly with materials like bitumen. It's a remarkable insight into ancient pain management and healthcare, tackling problems we still deal with today.
It's astounding how much they prioritized health and comfort. And their foresight in city planning for public health was equally remarkable. Take the flush toilets in Indus Valley cities.
Ah, yes, Mohenjo-daro and Harappa.
They had private toilets linked to sewage systems centuries ahead of Europe, where open sewers were common even in major cities for millennia afterward. That's a huge deal for public health.
That's a critical point for understanding urban living. In cities like Mohenjo-daro and Harappa, dating to around 2500 BCE, Nearly every house had its own private bathroom with a toilet connected to an elaborate drainage system. These drains ran under the streets, were covered with bricks, and even had manholes for inspection and cleaning.
Like a modern sewer system.
Pretty much. This level of citywide sanitation planning for public health was truly unprecedented and wouldn't be seen again on such a scale until the Roman Empire, and even then, its widespread adoption across Europe lagged considerably until the 19th century.
And the Minoans took it even further, didn't they?
Oh, absolutely. In Minoan Crete at the Palace of Knossos, dating to around 1700 BCE, we find incredibly complex plumbing systems with not only flushing toilets but also hot and cold water supply.
Hot and cold running water. In 1700 BCE.
Imagine the luxury and sophistication. Having running water in your home thousands of years ago, with terracotta pipes, elaborate drainage systems with S-bends to trap odors, and even a system to capture rainwater. This truly highlights a level of comfort, hygiene, and public health awareness that was achieved, lost, and only rediscovered much later in history.
This advanced urban planning extended to climate control as well, which is fascinating. The Romans perfected hypocaust heating, a system that used hot air under floors to heat homes and bathhouses. How did that work exactly?
The hypocaust system was an early form of central heating, incredibly efficient for its time. Furnaces located outside the main building would heat air, which then circulated through hollow spaces created by pillars, typically brick or tile stacks called palae, beneath the raised floor, and sometimes within the walls too.
So the floor itself became a radiator.
Essentially, yes. This radiated warmth upwards, heating the rooms above. This not only provided warmth, but also contributed to the famous Roman bathhouse culture, making them central social hubs where citizens could relax, socialize, and discuss current affairs in comfort. It's a precursor to modern radiant floor heating.
And it wasn't just the Romans thinking about environmental comforts. The Maya were filtering water.
Yes. What's more, the Maya in Mesoamerica also developed sophisticated water filtration systems. They understood the importance of clean water for health, constructing complex reservoir systems and filtering stations using natural materials like quartz and charcoal.
How do we know this?
For example, at the site of Tikal, archaeologists found evidence of a massive reservoir that integrated a filtration bed made of quartz crystals and zeolite, a volcanic material known for its filtering properties. This demonstrated a clear understanding that certain natural materials could purify water, making it safe for drinking.
So how does this innovation resonate with modern concerns about clean water?
Well, it highlights that the challenge of providing clean water is an ancient and enduring one, right? And the solutions often draw on fundamental natural processes that we still utilize today in modern water treatment. They were tackling the same problems we are.
Moving from the comforts of home to the cutting edge of ancient warfare and energy, these innovations show us how resourceful people were in expanding their reach, protecting themselves, and harnessing the very forces of nature.
Absolutely.
These aren't just clever tricks, they're monumental steps in technological development that still spark debate and wonder.
These examples truly showcase ingenuity born of necessity, whether for power, for defense, or for exploring new frontiers. They demonstrate a pragmatic application of scientific principles, some of which still baffle us today, leaving unanswered questions. It's a testament to the human drive to innovate and adapt, using whatever knowledge and materials were at hand.
And speaking of baffling and unsolved mysteries, let's talk about the Baghdad battery. This 2,000-year-old clay jar, discovered near Baghdad in Iraq in 1936, is believed by some to have produced a small electric charge.
It's a strange little artifact, isn't it? It consists of a clay jar, a copper cylinder inside, and an iron rod suspended within the cylinder but insulated from it, often by bitumen.
And if you add liquid,
if filled with an electrolyte like grape juice or vinegar, it could indeed generate a low voltage, maybe a volt or two.
Okay, but what for? That's the big question.
Exactly. What's truly fascinating here is the ongoing speculation and controversy around its precise function. While it certainly could generate electricity, its purpose isn't universally agreed upon. Some theories suggest it was used for medicinal purposes, maybe for pain relief through electroacupuncture, or for religious rituals to provide a mild electric shock, kind of like a novelty effect.
Or maybe something more practical.
Well, the most tantalizing speculation, supported by some experimental archaeology, is that it was used for electroplating, applying a thin layer of one metal, like gold or silver, onto another, less precious metal, for decorative or functional purposes.
So gilding without mercury.
Possibly. If this theory holds true, what does that imply about early electrical understanding? It suggests a rudimentary but profound grasp of electricity that was developed and then seemingly lost for centuries, only to be rediscovered much later in the modern era. It certainly challenges our linear view of scientific discovery, but, it's still heavily debated. No wires were found, for example.
Definitely forces you to rethink things. And then we have Hero of Alexandria's Aeolipile, often referred to as the world's first steam engine.
Hero's engine, yes.
This simple yet profound device, dating to the 1st century AD, used steam power to rotate a sphere. How does it work?
Hero's Aeolipile was essentially a reaction turbine. It consisted of a spherical rotor mounted on pivots with two L-shaped nozzles facing opposite directions. When water inside the sphere was heated maybe by a fire underneath to produce steam, the steam escaped through the nozzles, causing the sphere to rotate rapidly based on the principle of jet propulsion. Newton's third law in action, basically.
So it actually worked, like a real engine.
It worked. It clearly demonstrated the fundamental principle of steam power and reaction thrust, a concept that underlies modern jet engines and rockets. But it wasn't widely adopted for practical purposes in its time. It was seen more as a curiosity, a toy, or a novelty for entertainment, or demonstrating physical principles in, say, temples.
So why didn't it kick off an industrial revolution?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Historians suggest it might be due to a combination of factors. Maybe the lack of robust materials to harness high-pressure steam safely, maybe the absence of a societal need for large-scale mechanical power when you had abundant human and animal labor.
Right, slavery was still widespread.
Exactly. And maybe just a different philosophical outlook on technology. Nevertheless, it still demonstrated fundamental thermodynamic principles centuries ahead of their widespread industrial application.
And harnessing natural forces wasn't limited to steam. Early vertical axis windmills in Persia, dating back to the 7th century AD or maybe even earlier, were used to power mills and pump water for irrigation.
Yeah, these were quite different from the iconic Dutch windmills we often picture. The Persian windmills consisted of a central vertical axle with sails attached, typically enclosed within a structure that channeled the wind onto one side of the rotor.
Vertical axis, not horizontal like we usually see.
Right. The sails, often made of bundles of reeds or wooden slats, would catch the wind, turning the central axle, which then powered millstones for grinding grain, or drove mechanisms for pumping water from wells for irrigation. Their significant role in early industrial and agricultural applications demonstrates a crucial step in mechanization, long before the European Industrial Revolution. They allowed communities to harness ambient energy for essential tasks, significantly improving efficiency in food production and water management in arid regions.
From harnessing power to projecting power, ancient civilizations also developed incredibly sophisticated weaponry and navigation tools that truly changed the course of history. Greek fire is a legendary example.
The mysterious Greek fire.
A fiery liquid weapon used by the Byzantine Empire that could burn even on water. Its exact formula remains a mystery to this day.
Greek fire was truly the ultimate naval deterrent of its time, giving the Byzantine Empire a crucial military advantage for centuries, particularly in defending Constantinople. It was a fiercely guarded state secret, a viscous, fiery liquid that could be projected from siphons, likely bronze tubes, onto enemy ships.
It burned on water. How?
That was its most terrifying property, its ability to continue burning even on water, making it nearly impossible to extinguish. The exact composition is still debated, but theories suggest it might have contained naphtha, quicklime, sulfur, resin, maybe petroleum, perhaps components that reacted with water to generate heat or were simply hydrophobic.
So we still don't know for sure.
We don't. Its devastating strategic impact in naval warfare was immense, allowing the Byzantines to repel formidable attacks and maintain maritime supremacy. The fact that such a potent formula has been lost to history speaks volumes about the secrecy surrounding its production and perhaps the instability of its ingredients over time. Or maybe it just wasn't one formula.
Moving from destruction to discovery, the compass, invented in China, started as a tool for feng shui before becoming essential in sea navigation. How did this transition happen? Seems like a big leap.
Early compasses, dating back to the Han Dynasty, around 206 BCE to 220 CE, utilized naturally magnetized lodestone, often shaped like a spoon balanced on a bronze plate marked with directions.
A spoon.
Yeah, the handle would point south. Initially, they weren't used for maritime navigation, but for geomancy, the practice of interpreting features of the earth to determine auspicious directions for aligning buildings, tombs, and even city layouts according to feng shui principles, finding harmony with the environment.
Okay, so how did sailors get hold of it?
Well, over time, the practical application of consistently knowing direction became obvious, especially as trade routes expanded. By the Song dynasty, around the 10th to 13th centuries CE, the compass had evolved into a sophisticated navigational aid, often a magnetized needle floating in water or suspended. It became indispensable for sailors.
And that changed everything for exploration.
Absolutely. This revolutionary tool provided a constant reference point, allowing navigators to determine their bearings even in cloudy conditions or far from land, enabling longer voyages and the expansion of trade and exploration across vast oceans. It literally opened up the world.
And these explorations were aided by other key maritime innovations, also from China, that completely changed ship design and capability. The rudder, for instance.
Absolutely. The Chinese also invented ship rudders, specifically the sternpost rudder, as early as the 1st century AD. Before this, ships were steered by large side oars or steering paddles, which were cumbersome and less effective in rough seas or with larger ships.
How is the sternpost rudder better?
The sternpost rudder, fixed to the stern of the ship on hinges, provided much better steering control and maneuverability in open seas and stronger currents. It acted more efficiently because it was in the ship's direct wake. This dramatically improved a ship's efficiency and ability to hold a course.
And what about stability? Weren't early ships prone to getting pushed sideways?
That was a major issue. Simultaneously, or perhaps developing in parallel in the Mediterranean, the Phoenicians, masters of ancient seafaring, developed sailing ships with keels. The keel is a strong structural beam running along the bottom of the hull, like a spine.
What does the keel do?
It provided crucial stability to the ship. It acted like a fin underwater, preventing the ship from being pushed sideways by the wind, a phenomenon known as leeway, allowing them to sail more effectively against the wind and across open seas. These innovations, the sternpost rudder for control and the keel for stability, were critical for controlling and stabilizing vessels in challenging maritime conditions, enabling longer voyages, greater cargo capacity, and the expansion of trade networks.
And finally, on the battlefield, an innovation that democratized warfare and forever changed combat tactics. The crossbow, also invented in China.
Yes, the crossbow developed around the 4th century BCE, maybe even earlier. It offered distinct advantages over traditional bows, fundamentally changing warfare.
What were the main advantages?
Well, simple bows required significant strength, skill, and extensive training to master. You needed years to become a proficient archer. The crossbow, however, could be cocked, often using a mechanism, and held under tension, allowing for a far more consistent aim and powerful shot with less physical exertion or training time.
So easier to train soldiers quickly.
Exactly. This meant that less trained soldiers could wield a formidable weapon with considerable piercing power and range, often exceeding that of a traditional bow, especially at shorter distances. Its tactical advantages, greater range, power, and ease of use made it a devastating weapon that could be wielded by massed infantry. It effectively changed battlefield dynamics and made warfare more accessible and, arguably, more lethal. It was a true force multiplier.
That's fascinating. Okay, let's shift gears for our final section. The ability to document, preserve, and share information is fundamental to the progress and cohesion of any civilization. Before the internet, before even the printing press, ancient societies developed incredibly sophisticated ways to record, preserve, and transmit knowledge. Let's delve into how they managed information across vast empires and generations.
This is so crucial. These inventions were not just tools, they were catalysts for intellectual, administrative, and cultural development, allowing for the transmission of knowledge across generations and vast distances. They paved the way for complex governance, widespread literacy in some cases, and the accumulation of shared human understanding, laying the very foundation for what we consider an information age today.
It started with the very surface they wrote on. The Egyptians created papyrus, the first paper-like material, which revolutionized record-keeping and literature. How significant was this, really?
The development of papyrus, made from the pith of the papyrus plant that grew abundantly along the Nile, was a profound leap in information technology. Unlike cumbersome methods like carving stone inscriptions or pressing cuneiform into heavy clay tablets.
Right, imagine carrying a library of clay tablets.
Exactly. Papyrus was flexible, lightweight, and relatively easy to produce in large quantities by layering strips of the plant pith. This enabled vastly more efficient administration for the sprawling Egyptian bureaucracy, allowed for the creation of extensive written records of laws, decrees, and economic transactions, and crucially facilitated the easier spread of ideas, literature, and religious texts.
Made knowledge more portable.
Definitely. Scribes could write faster, texts could be transported more easily, and knowledge could accumulate and disseminate more widely than ever before. It truly was the ancient world's high-tech medium for a long time.
And writing on papyrus was made even easier with the advent of ink and fountain pens, invented in both Egypt and China, apparently.
Well, early ink, invented in Egypt around 2500 BCE, was typically soot-based, a mixture of lampblack or soot, gum arabic as a binder, and water. This created a permanent, dark ink that worked perfectly on papyrus. China developed similar carbon-based inks.
And the fountain pen. Not like the ones we have now, I assume.
No, not exactly. The fountain pen, as we might imagine, it wasn't truly a fountain pen with an internal reservoir back then, but rather a significant improvement on simple dipping pens. These were typically reeds or bamboo sticks with a split or a finely cut tip that allowed them to hold a small amount of ink through capillary action.
Ah, so it held more ink than just dipping.
Right, enabling a more continuous flow of writing. The development of an instrument that could hold even a small amount of ink greatly facilitated faster, more efficient, and more widespread writing. It allowed for continuous strokes, making the act of transcription and documentation much more fluid and less labor-intensive, increasing the speed and volume of written communication.
But not all information was stored in written language as we understand it. The Inca Empire, for example, used the quipu, a truly unique system of knotted cords, for accounting and communication across their vast empire. Without a traditional written language, how do they manage to store such complex information? It seems almost impossible.
The quipu is an incredible testament to the diversity of human communication systems. Without a traditional alphabetic or pictographic written language, the Inca developed this intricate system where numerical and even narrative information could be stored and transmitted through different types of knots, colors, and arrangements of cotton or woolen cords.
So knots meant numbers.
Yes, numerical data was stored using a base 10 system, with knots representing specific values in a positional notation, much like our own number system. Different knot types, positions on the cord colors, and cord groupings could represent categories, sums, and inventories.
But what about stories or non-numerical stuff?
That's the really fascinating part. Researchers are also discovering evidence that some quipu may have recorded non-numerical narrative information, acting as a form of three-dimensional writing or mnemonic device. The exact way this worked is still being deciphered, but it likely involved complex combinations of color, knot type, and structure.
Yeah.
It served as a sophisticated administrative tool for census data, taxes, astronomical observations, and historical records across a vast mountainous empire, demonstrating an astonishing level of organizational ingenuity in managing a complex society without a textual script. It forces us to broaden our definition of writing.
The ability to collect and store vast amounts of information then led to the concept of the public library. The Library of Ashurbanipal in Assyria, dating back to the 7th century BCE, held thousands of clay tablets, meticulously cataloged by subject. This wasn't just a king's private stash, was it?
Far from it. The Library of Ashurbanipal, named after the Neo-Assyrian king Ashurbanipal, was one of the earliest systematic and organized public repositories of knowledge we know of. Located in Nineveh, his capital, it contained over 30,000 clay tablets and fragments.
30,000 tablets.
Yes, covering a vast array of subjects: history, law, medicine, astronomy, mythology, literature, dictionaries, mathematical tables, and even omens and magical texts. The tablets were meticulously cataloged by subject, title, and even by the scribe who copied them, often with colophons providing details for future librarians or scholars.
So they had librarians and cataloging systems.
They did. Its sheer scale and meticulous cataloging were groundbreaking, serving as a vital center for scholarship, record-keeping, and intellectual life in the ancient Near East. It highlights a conscious, deliberate effort by an empire to collect, preserve, and make accessible the cumulative knowledge of its civilization and the civilizations it conquered. It was truly an ancient intellectual hub.
And to transmit that knowledge and administrative decrees across vast distances, Darius the Great of Persia created what many consider the world's first reliable postal systems. This wasn't just someone carrying a letter when they felt like it, was it?
Not at all. This was an ingenious system, the Royal Road, a true administrative marvel designed to manage a vast empire stretching from India to Greece. Darius the Great, ruler of the Achaemenid Empire in the 5th century BCE, established a network of well-maintained roads.
Like the Roman roads later.
A similar idea, yeah. Dotted with strategically placed relay stations approximately a day's ride apart. At each station, fresh horses and trained couriers were kept ready. A message would be carried by one courier to the next station, then passed to a fresh courier and horse, allowing for incredibly rapid transmission of messages across the enormous empire.
The original Pony Express, kinda.
Exactly. The Greek historian Herodotus famously noted about the Persian couriers, "Neither snow nor rain nor heat nor gloom of night stays these couriers from the swift completion of their appointed rounds." Sound familiar?
Sounds very familiar.
Its practical implications for governance, military coordination, and trade were immense, allowing the central authority to maintain control and receive intelligence from the farthest reaches of its domain with unprecedented efficiency. It truly was an information superhighway of its time, demonstrating a sophisticated understanding of logistics and communication needed to run such a huge territory.
So what does this all mean? We've journeyed through just a fraction of the incredible ingenuity of ancient civilizations, from the intricacies of a mechanism that predicted celestial events to life-saving surgeries and sprawling urban plumbing systems. They truly were visionaries, laying groundwork we often take for granted. It's just staggering.
What's deeply fascinating here, I think, is that these inventions weren't isolated incidents or lucky accidents. They represent sustained periods of scientific inquiry, practical problem solving, and a profound understanding of their world, achieved through observation, experimentation, and accumulated knowledge.
Yeah, not just flashes in the pan.
Right. They truly challenge our assumptions about linear progress and make us question what modern truly means. The fact that many of these advancements were either lost, forgotten, or only reinvented centuries later compels us to reconsider the trajectory of human innovation. It suggests that knowledge is often cyclical, maybe fragile, and sometimes the most profound insights come from unexpected places in history, only to be rediscovered when the societal conditions are ripe again.
As you look around your own world today, you, our listener, what seemingly modern innovation do you think has roots in ancient ingenuity that we might still be overlooking? It makes you wonder, doesn't it? And how might rediscovering some of this ancient wisdom and resourcefulness solve some of our current complex challenges? Maybe offering simpler, more sustainable approaches. Perhaps the answers to some of our most pressing problems lie not just in future breakthroughs, but in revisiting the forgotten brilliance of our past.
This raises an important question for all of us, I believe. In a world of information overload and rapidly evolving technology, how can we apply the critical thinking and problem-solving spirit of these ancient innovators to the problems we face today? Their ingenuity stemmed from keen observation, empirical testing, and a deep connection to their environment and available resources. Perhaps embracing that same spirit of resourceful inquiry, that willingness to experiment and learn from failure, rather than always seeking entirely new, complex solutions, is the key to unlocking the next wave of human progress. What do you think?